I'm Latarsha Carithers. I am Chief of the Training, Mentored Research, and Diversity section within NIGMS's Scientific Review Branch, where the MSTP applications are reviewed. So I'm going to go over the peer review process for these applications, as well as reinforce some of the information that Mercedes provided to you earlier. Next slide, please. So just putting up the disclaimer again that this presentation is for informational purposes only, and you are responsible for following the instructions in the NOFO, any related notices, as well as the SF424 application guide when submitting your application. Next slide. There are two committees that will review MSTP applications, and they are TWD-A and TWD-B. I am the SRO, or the Scientific Review Officer, for TWD-B, and we are in the process of appointing a new SRO to TWD-A. The MSTPs are generally reviewed alongside the basic biomedical T32s. In terms of the two panels, the TWD-A and B, they both have 15 standing study section members each, and the members have a strong focus on graduate and medical sciences training, as well as the programmatic areas needed to cover the basic biomedical predoctoral T32. The reviewers have broad representation in terms of geographic, gender, and different racial and ethnic groups, and we will recruit temporary members each round if we need additional coverage from a workload or expertise perspective based on the applications that come in that round. We are always looking for new reviewers, so if you are interested, please check out the link on this slide, which will take you to a form on our NIGMS website where you can become a volunteer reviewer. Next slide, please. So the rosters will be provided 30 days before each review meeting, and when the time comes, you can view the rosters at the links provided here. These are sister committees, TWD-A and B, that operate essentially the same way. The main reasons why we have two committees instead of one is just to handle the workload and any conflicts that may arise. Members of both committees are oriented at the same time, and they receive the same information regarding review. Next slide, please. So here's the general timeline. From the time you submit, it will take about 1 to 2 months for the Division of Receipt and Referral to review your application and send it to NIGMS. Then the SRO will have from months 2 to 6 to put together the review panel and host the meeting. And then in months 6 and 7, you can expect to receive your summary statements. The Advisory Council will meet in months 7 and 8, and funding decisions will be made in months 8 to 9, with an award start date in months 9 to 10. From the point you submit until you receive your summary statements, your point of contact will be your scientific review officer. And then once your summary statements have been released, your point of contact will be your program officer. Scores and summary statements can be accessed in the applicant PI's ERA Commons account. Next slide, please. So once you submit your application, it will be evaluated by reviewers using the criteria in Section 5 of the NOFO. This section is called the Application Review Information section. Applicants also often focus on Section 4 of the NOFO, which provides information on how to prepare and submit your application. But Section 5 is equally important since it tells you what reviewers will be looking for. So please read the review criteria carefully while you're preparing your application and make sure that you include all of the required information that reviewers will be looking for. Next slide, please. So we encourage you to submit early and allow yourself enough time to carefully check your application. We cannot accept any missing items after the receipt deadline. Applications that are incomplete or non-compliant will not be reviewed. Be sure to supply all requested materials that are within the page limits, as Mercedes specified earlier. And also do not overstuff sections of the applications that don't have page limits, and do not use appendices to get around the page limits. The appendix should only be used in circumstances covered in the NIH policy on appendix material, and as the NOFO specifically instructs applicants to do so. So as Mercedes indicated earlier, we no longer have any NIGMS or NOFO specific application materials that we're requesting. So please be sure to read this section carefully. If you include material that is not allowed here, it may be considered overstepping and be cause for withdrawal. So other attachments has been shortened. There was a question about what other attachments are allowed. Mercedes went over it earlier, and I'm going to reinforce it here again. We have streamlined the other attachments section. So now we require only 2 items, and we allow 2 additional optional items. As many of you know, you are not allowed to submit Table 6A for this NOFO. If you include it in your application, it will be withdrawn. What you must submit instead is called the baseline data on the trainee pool using suggested format Table A. And if you have multiple departments or multiple organizational structures, you must also include suggested format Table B. And the tables are linked on the slide. You must also include a recruitment plan to enhance diversity that is no longer than 3 pages. The optional other attachments are the advisory committee and the training activities. In terms of the advisory committee, if you plan to use one, you should attach an attachment about the advisory committee. To avoid conflicts in the peer review process, only pre-existing advisory committee members should be named in the application. Potential advisory committee members should not be identified or contacted prior to receiving award. The second optional other attachment is the new training activities section. So even though this is optional, it's a great opportunity for you to provide reviewers with additional information on any elective courses, workshops, and training activities that are specific to your MSTP. And then we removed these other materials indicated here at the bottom as other attachments. So no longer is training retention plan, outcomes data collection and storage plan, and the dissemination plan included as other attachments. So please do not include them. Okay, so as I mentioned about the appendix, only allowable appendix material as what are listed in the SF424 application guide are allowed, and I'm showing them here on the screen. So these things include blank data collection forms, blank survey forms, questionnaires, a simple list of interview questions, blank informed consent assessment forms. So please, if you are including them, make sure that these are blank forms. They should not include any data at all. And make sure that they're presented as forms, things that actually need to be filled out. So, and then just to reiterate that no other items are allowed in the appendix, and applications will be withdrawn and not reviewed if they do not follow the appendix requirements in this section. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of the tables, all new applications are required to have tables 1 through 5 and table 8A. And then the renewal applications must also have table 7. Baseline data on the trainee pool, which is suggested format A, and if applicable, suggested format table B, if you have like the multi-institutional or multi-organizational, multi-department applications. Those formats replace the old table 6. So please do not include table 6 in your application will be withdrawn. For table 8, for new applications, part 3 allows up to 5 years of outcomes data, but your application can include up to 15 years of outcomes in the text program plan of your previous or existing training programs. And then for current programs, table 8, part 1 and 2, again, allow 15 years of outcomes. Next slide, please. Next slide, we're going to get into the actual review criteria now. So there are 5 scored review criteria for the MSTPs. Those are the training plan and environment. This is probably the most expansive or largest component of the review criteria. It has 5 different components: the rationale, mission, and objectives, the curriculum and overall training plan, career development, program oversight, participating faculty selection, and mentor training, and then organizational and departmental commitment to the program. The second scored review criteria is the training program director or principal investigator. If it's a multi-PI application, you need to add information on the leadership plan and roles, as well as conflict resolution and why the MPI plan benefits the program and the trainees. Then the third scored review criteria are the preceptors and mentors. And the fourth are the trainees, and the fifth is the training record. And I'm going to get into the trainees and the training record on the next slide. So next slide, please. Okay, so the trainees section has been revised. There used to be 3 sections. It was the application process, funded positions, and retention and support. And now it's been condensed down to 2 sections. So just the candidate review process and trainee appointments and financial support. And then for the training record, the biggest change is that it used to be just the training outcomes and program evaluation plan, but now we've added in questions on dissemination and data storage here. So next slide, please. All right, so the review criteria, in terms of additional review criteria, so these are overall score impacting, but they do not receive individual scores. These criteria are resubmissions, which Mercedes alluded to. Resubmissions are only allowed for renewals. Then we have renewals themselves, training and methods for enhancing reproducibility, recruitment plan to enhance diversity, and training in the responsible conduct of research. And then human subjects, inclusion of women, minorities, and individuals, vertebrate animals, and biohazards are generally not applicable, and revisions are not allowed, so they're not applicable. Next slide, please. Okay, so renewals, they're only for applications that were initially funded under PAR 17341 or PAR 2213. For renewals, reviewers will evaluate 3 areas. Have you implemented the activities you proposed in your previous application? What are the results from your evaluations, and have you been responsive to feedback? And what has been the impact of your program? And have you disseminated the outcomes? Next slide, please. Okay, so for the recruitment plan, reviewers will be looking at, is the recruitment process responsive to the baseline data on the trainee pool, that data table that replaces Table 6. And they'll also be looking at whether the training program's recruitment plan describes effective strategies that reach beyond a broad range of potential trainees, that reach to a broad range of potential trainees that are program specific and go beyond the organizational recruitment effort. So this is not just the recruitment that your institution does as a whole. It really should show that faculty are involved in the recruitment for this program. Next slide, please. Then reviewers will consider whether the number of requested slots are fully justified for the budget. This is part of the additional review considerations. So the budget will not be given an individual score, and it will not be considered in the overall impact score. But if there are concerns, they must be resolved before funding. So the reviewers, again, will consider whether the number of requested slots are fully justified when considering several factors. The training grant eligible pool, the size of that pool, the size of the entire program, the number of participating faculty, and other NIGMS funded training programs. And then select agents generally do not apply for the additional review considerations. Next slide, please. Okay, so just some general topics and problem areas we see is that there should only be 1 letter. It should be signed in terms of institutional support. So that letter should be signed by a senior institutional official. Other letters of support are allowed, but we suggest limiting them, and these letters must not contain any of the information required in the institutional support letter. So if you include additional letters that have information that should have been placed in that 1 institutional support letter, that could be considered overstuffing and again cause for withdrawal. In terms of the appendix, just a reminder, follow the new instructions. The evaluation forms, if you're going to include them, please don't include actual data or filled out forms. And then the post-submission materials, preprints are not allowed. Next slide, please. Again, just read the program announcement and ensure that your application contains all of the necessary elements. As Mercedes mentioned before, successful submission through grants.gov and ERA Commons does not mean that you've been appropriately responsive to and in compliance with the program announcement. So there are additional checks later on that could lead to withdrawal. The next slide, please. Application tips. Address all requirements of the program announcement. So if they're asking for information and you don't have it, don't just leave it out, provide an explanation. If you don't have institutional baseline data, explain how you plan to obtain it. If you're a no program and you haven't fully formed your evaluation plan, for example, at least acknowledge that you're working on it. Describe how your program works or will work. How are students recruited and selected? Who does the selecting and the recruiting? What does the advisory committee do if you have one? How often do they meet? Who's involved? Or what type of expertise would be involved in that advisory committee? How often have you used or how have you used evaluation information in designing and improving your program? Next slide, please. This is very important, just try to be as clear as possible. Don't bury information. Don't expect reviewers to read between the lines and figure out what you're trying to say. And present outcomes in a straightforward manner. Don't exaggerate. Don't hide data. Reviewers, they're like detectives. They will figure it out. They'll do the math. It's much better to be upfront about any deficiencies that you have in your program or your program plan rather than try to hide it. Just show that the data as it is and state that you recognize that there's room for improvement in this area, and then show your plans to address it. Next slide. If you're, make sure that faculty bio sketches are up to date in the correct format and relevant for the training program. Please don't include just the blanket R01 type of biosketch. These biosketches really should be tailored to the institutional training program and include statements of commitment to training and promoting safe and inclusive environments. Provide data on current and prior students. If you are talking about prior students, you need to specify if they were students who were in your training program, if you had a previous iteration, or if you're referring to students who were just eligible for your training program at that time. That's an area that's kind of confusing for reviewers. Also use the most recent institutional data. Don't use data from, a million years ago. Also be consistent. I know that sometimes there are multiple individuals preparing these applications. Maybe at the end, you want to have one person read it over just to make sure that all the data throughout the application is consistent. So the data in the tables and the text should match. The data across tables should be consistent. Match justification to budget items. Refer to the correct program in the text and tables. I can't tell you how many times we see things cut and pasted from, the wrong application information. Also, if your application is a new application, refer to it as new and not as a renewal, even though you might have had a previous iteration of this program. And then include a timeline for activities. Next slide, please. All right, there are no secrets in peer review. This applies for new and smaller programs, but in general, it's relative to all of them. So all of the criteria are in section 5 in terms of the review criteria. With new and smaller programs, please reach out to your program officers or SROs at NIGMS. Program officers can address questions about, programmatic goals and the structure of the program. And then if funded, they can talk about program performance and reporting. And SROs can address review-related questions or questions about application compliance. Time and commitment to the program, while not totally free, is crucially important. So big and small programs can run afoul of this. PIs and MPIs and participant faculty should have demonstrated time commitment to the program and the trainees. So, maybe you don't have a lot of money to, show in terms of institutional support, but this is a good way to make up for that in terms of showing that there's institutional commitment in terms of, releasing faculty from certain other obligations so that they can participate in this program. Problem areas. So program evaluation, even though the NOFO does not specify that a dedicated evaluator is needed, you should consider reaching out to colleagues with evaluation experience and other resources. Discuss both short and long-term evaluation goals, performance and outcomes of the students and the program evaluation. And the program. And then there are just two resources listed here. The evaluation information on TWD training resource page, and then it's crossed out that it's new because it's not. It's from a couple of years ago, but the TWD webinar on evaluation and program assessment is available as well. And then the recruitment plan to enhance diversity. Is it responsive to the baseline data for the program? Are there program-specific activities beyond the organizational recruitment efforts? And training and methods for enhancing reproducibility, are they integrated throughout the program? And then for training in the responsible conduct of research, remember that there are 5 areas of assessment. Those are format, subject matter, faculty participation, duration, at least 8 contact hours, and then frequency is at least once every 4 years, and it should also be integrated throughout the program. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are the contacts if you have any questions about the MSTPs, and I'm going to hand it back over to Mercedes.